Okay, so I've had lots of requests for it, so here it is. You guys pretty much know the drill by now, right? I'm just gonna run through it quickly. You can press pause, go back and rewatch something if you need to rewatch it, but this is sort of just your quick run through so you can sort of check and make sure you're doing things correct or get a quick look at the work for problems. Okay, so this first chunk here, we're just going through and we're putting it in a calculator. So -8 plus -22 is -30. Number 2, we'll do 12 minus 40, which will give us a -28. Number 3, 6 minus -2 will give us an 8. Number 3, make sure if you're putting that in your calculator, you're gonna have to do the top first and then divide it by the bottom. Okay, so you want a -3 times a -8, which gives you a +24, divided by -2, which gives us a -12. Number 5, you can go through and do the entire thing in using order of operations. Sorry, my brain paused there for a second. Using order of operations, or you can just put the entire thing in your calculator just like you see it, right? So you can put 4 parentheses 6 plus 1 close parenthesis minus 6 divided by 2. We get 25. Same thing on 6, right? Just like we see it. We get 4. 7, we're just combining like terms. So a -6z and a -4z will give us a -10z. Number 8, the first thing we're going to do is distribute. That's what parentheses tell us to do. So that will give us a 3x plus 12 minus 2x. We have to get our x's together. Okay, so 3x minus 2x is 1x plus 12. Number 9, 8 times -4 is a -32. 10, -22 divided by -11 is a +2. Again, you could put those in your calculator. 11 also has an x and we have parentheses, so we need to distribute first. So we'll have a 10x minus 20, and then we'll consider that plus x minus 9. So we have some like terms to get together. A 10x plus a 1x, or a 10x plus an x is 11x. A -20 minus 9 is a -29. Okay, when we do the fractions, remember to put those in our calculator. 2 ABC5 plus 1 ABC3. 13, 1 and 1/5 divided by 2/3. Same thing with decimals. You can put this in just how you see it. Make sure you're typing in the negative as a negative and the subtraction as a subtraction. Sorry, I got low there. So a 31.5. Order of operations for number 5. Again, if you're doing it by hand, remember multiplication comes before addition or subtraction. Okay, but if you're doing it in your calculator, you just have to type the whole thing in at once. 16, we will distribute. 17, we will distribute. Right, 2 negatives make a positive. -1 and 1/3. If you don't see that as an option, right, you can always change it into a different form. Number 20, we are looking at number sets. So for deciding in number sets, right, hopefully on your reference sheet you wrote down what each set of numbers was. 8 is a basic counting number, so that's a natural number, which means it falls in all of them after it. So natural, whole, integer, rational, and real, which makes that A. 21 is 1.5, that's a decimal. The first place we see decimals is rationals, so we're gonna be rational and real, which is B. 22, right, the order stays the same. We're just moving the parentheses, and that's with multiplication, so that's D. 23, the order is changing here, and it's through addition, so that would be the commutative property, which is A. Then we start getting into equations, so we're using our inverse operations. That's a 24, right? We'll undo addition with subtraction. Again, if you need to use like a calculator to do the -8 minus the 24, you can, but we'll get a -32. Undo addition with subtraction. right? We can multiply by the reciprocal or divide by 1/3. Those are both the same thing. We'll get x equals 15. We'll undo addition and subtraction first. Or x equals -4. Here, same thing, right? We can divide by 2/3 or we can multiply by 3/2. Those are both the same thing. And then if you divide by the 2/3 and you need to use your calculator, right? You can just put it in your calculator. We'll get, oh, this is a y, equals 1 1/5. If you don't see that as an answer, you need to put it in a different form. 28, we will distribute first. A negative times a positive is a negative. Okay, we'll get our like terms together. Then we'll add the 12. So we'll get 10 equals 5x. 2 equals x, or x equals 2. It's kind of squished, so we'll do a different color here. Okay, so like terms on 29, those variables are on opposite sides, so we have to get them together with the opposite sign. Okay, so that gives us an 8x plus 1 equals 10. $30 is absolute value. We're going to get this stuff away outside of the absolute value first. Okay, then we'll undo an absolute value by making it a positive and a negative, right? So we'll say, oh gosh, I'm going to go over here so I have space. So we'll say x plus 4 equals 8 and x plus 4 equals -8. So we'll get two numbers. That's okay. This one has two answers, x equals 4 and -12. Number 31, that 2 is attached with multiplication, so we'll use division. Nope, we need both options here, so x plus 4 equals 6. X plus 4 equals -6. So we'll get x equals 2 and x equals -10. 32, we'll subtract the 8. Right, 0 doesn't get an assignment of positive and negative, so we just go with the one option of x plus 6 equals 0, and we'll solve that. $31, do multiplication with division, but it's an inequality, so when we divide by a negative, we have to flip the inequality sign. Undo addition and subtraction first. -2. We divided by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. As I'm trying to pick different colors so we can keep the work separated. We need to get like terms together, so I'm going to subtract the w. So -2w minus w gives me a -3w. You could move the other way. I just chose to move this way so I didn't have to flip the inequality later. We'll subtract the 18. Divide by the -3. And again, when we divide by the negative, we have to flip the sign. Right, we'll multiply by -2. Multiplying by a negative is also a reason to flip the inequality sign. Solve for y, so we want to move the x away. Undo multiplication with division. Make sure here, right, this gives us a -y equals a -3x plus 9, so we still have to get rid of that -1 in front of the y. And we'll get a 3x minus 9. The sum tells us addition of a number and 15 is negative 80. We solve that, we'll get x equals negative 95. Twice a number, so that's 2x increased by is addition, 8 is 26. You could choose a different letter. Oh, that's an 8. 18. A number decreased by 4 is at most, tells us less than or equal to. And this one doesn't ask us to solve, so we're fine there. 41, we're just plotting points, so 0, negative 3 is here. 42, 1, comma 7 is up here. 43, we're stating the domain, so those are our x values in numerical order with no repeats. In braces. Is 43 a function? And there was no repeats in the x, so that's yes. 45, we just need to represent this in another format. So I'm going to represent this as ordered pairs. So that's 0, comma 1, right? 0, comma 1, because that line's drawing there. Negative 2, comma 8. And negative 2, comma 1. And then 8, comma 4. Inverse, we are flipping the x and y. So 6, comma 4. Negative 1, 2. 9, 4. Negative 8, 1. 47, it's asking us to plug that 2 in. So 2 times 2 plus 6 would be 4 plus 6, which is 10. 48 is asking us to plug a in, right? Whatever's in the parentheses is what we put in for x. And we can't simplify that any further, so we just are left with a minus 10. 49, we're plugging in a 1. Okay, you can either type this in your calculator or 1 squared is 1 and negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. So that gives us a 2. 54, if we draw vertical lines, it will not touch the graph twice, so that is a function. 55, we're going to have to solve this for y to start with. We don't have to, but right, function rules are easier to work with if we're solved for y. Right, and then we're plugging in each x value to see which one gives the appropriate y value. So if I plug 1 in, 2 times 1 minus 10, so that's 2 minus 10, which is negative 8, and that one's actually the right one right off the bat, so we know that the correct answer is A.